Welcome y'all to the Blackhoof Saloon, a Wild West Exodus podcast. Mosey on up to the bar and get yourself a bottle of firewater or a glass of sarsaparilla and listen to some good old yarns about adventures of law dogs, outlaws, and weird creatures. So set a spell, water your ride or your rider, and get ready to tune up your posses. This is the Blackhoof Saloon.
Howdy all you saddle bums, and welcome to Blackhoof Saloon, a Wild West Exodus podcast. This is Eric here again with you, and I am joined by Tom out in Philly.
Hola.
And we got Brian down in Texas. Say hey, Brian.
Howdy, Brian.
Today we got a couple segments for you that should be pretty fun. We're going to kind of try out a new segment with you guys that's kind of a, I guess, more or less a discussion type segment that where we just kind of blabber about something in the game of Wild West Exodus. And then we're going to do a little bit later another top 3, but this time we're going to talk about vehicles, our favorite vehicles in the game. Something I wanted to go over in our opener is, guess what, guys? We got listener comments.
Ooh, feedback.
Feedback, yes, feedback. And luckily, they are all positive for us. They don't say that we stink and we don't know what the hell we're talking about. So real quick, I wanted to give a shout out to one of our first little feedbacks we had was from Isaiah 5112. God, I'm already screwing up talking. He basically just said, "Great job, guys," and keep up the good work. But we had, let's see, earlier in the week, we got a reply from a listener, Ian Creasy, I hope I'm saying that right, that said, he basically said thanks a bunch, for what we do, and he said he just started listening, so he's like on episode 2 and loving it, and he actually posted a question of what do we think about War Cradle getting to release all the protagonists for Tombstone. They have pretty much most of the Tombstone, like your classical historic guys out, don't they?
I think for the most part, I think also both from, the protagonist and antagonist side, because you do have the guys in the Outlaws, the Curly Bill and, some of those guys.
Johnny Ringo.
Yeah, Johnny Ringo.
Yep.
So I think they're pretty well covered there.
And we have,
I think they're all
quite a few of the Eps are out, right? We got all the Eps?
Well, we have more than what was in the movie.
Okay.
So Earp had several brothers and a half brother. So we have all but one of the Earp brothers in the game so far. So
who are we?
In reality, War Cradle could always give us more than that.
Yeah.
I know they've kind of teased that they were going to see a Tombstone Posse box set. So, we could very well see the other brother in the woods.
Who are we missing, Brian?
Do you remember?
I did look it up.
Wasn't there
2 years ago?
Wasn't there a younger brother who actually went on the death ride with them?
No, Morgan was the younger brother, but he ends up dying before they go on.
All right.
No.
I
think he was an older half brother because his mom had married. His mom evidently had a son, or his dad had a son from a previous mom.
Well, I'm pretty sure I read somewhere though that there was another Earp brother that went on the ride with them, the Vengeance ride, that just wasn't part of the Tombstone movie. But historic, there was another one.
I think that's Warren that joined them.
Oh, was it? Okay.
I don't think they ever said his name, but I could find out. My boss had a annotated copy of one of Wyatt Earp's early biographies, and evidently his grandmother had the book from a previous relative who made notations on the edges of all the pages, like correcting the biography.
Oh, that's kind of awesome.
Because there was again knowledge of what actually was going on. And I also went to college with one of the Clanton descendants. And he refused to watch Tombstone, and every time someone would mention it or mention an Earp, he would get livid.
That's awesome. He must have gotten trolled like crazy.
Yeah.
It's like a family thing. It's like they pass down for generations the hatred of the Earth.
Yeah, I actually hope we do get another, like you were saying, Brian, a Tombstone posse set. Mainly so they do something with that Doc figure. I hate that model. I mean, he's such a cool figure, but I do not like that model.
I agree. I've hated that since it got released.
I mean, he looks like he's pulling up his britches.
Yeah, it looks like he just came out of the half moon, and he's kind of pulling up his pants.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, I gotta get to fight.
Brian, what are you teasing us with on the video here? I mean, they can't see it on the audio, so I'm going to say, oh, he's teasing Doc is what he's doing.
This is my modified Doc. So he's holding a hand of cards, but you see the table behind him got kicked over in the fight. So he's
but now yours just like he's holding his crotch or something.
He's doing a Michael Jackson dance. Okay, so the first model I tease y'all with is my new, baton wielding Jedrick. So he's going to have both arms out and down. I haven't added the batons yet.
He's basically saying, bring it. Bring it.
Right.
No, maybe it's just the low resolution, but I think we have the answer to one of our other questions.
Before I get to that, Tom, you think Brian needs another Jedrick? I mean, he's just gonna start just building a bunch of Jedricks and just alter them.
Well, I mean, to be fair, if I was in that position, I'd have like 50 of them.
Yeah, true. Okay, go to our other question.
If I could buy one buy him just him, but I have to buy the whole box. So, I'll have when all is said and done, I'll have 3 Jedricks. 2 of him by himself, and then obviously I'll have the Jedrick, riding 2020. So,
God. So another listener comment we got this from, I believe it was just today as we're recording, from. Boy, I am going to butcher this poor man's last name. But it's Benji, who I know he was talking earlier on the Dark Council about Adepticon. He's getting really geared up for that, so we'll see him at Adepticon. But his last name is Grosek. I think I said that pretty close. Benji, if I butchered it, you can let me know and smack me later. He basically says, hey guys, thanks for all the hard work you do. Love the show. But one question always remains. If you had to assign the good, the bad, and the ugly from like the old Clint Eastwood movie to ourselves, who would be the good, the bad, and the ugly? And I know, Tom, you were interacting with him, and I actually have some of those printouts here. So Tom said, that's a good question. I'm too pretty to be the ugly, but I'm not nearly as good at second edition as first edition. I guess that makes me the bad. And then he says, Brian and Eric can fight over the other two. So what do you think about that, Brian?
Well, the diplomatic way to do it is not base it off of us,
but we play.
Base it off of what we play.
See, that's what I was thinking, and I play all the nasty bad guys. So
yeah, I play lawmen.
Yeah,
but I also play lawmen.
Yeah,
we have the good, the bad.
Union.
Hey, no, that didn't happen.
The Union would be the bad. And then the undead would be more ugly.
You know what? If I could let you have that one. If If we have to go that way, just hit me with the stick. I'll be the ugly.
Either way, I'm still bad. Me and Michael Jackson.
Wait a second. I thought we agreed that Brian's wearing all the sequins clothes.
That's all right. Oh, you don't believe? Come on, you're getting bedazzled. It'll be great.
So that was our little listener comments we had recently, and I want to thank everybody for commenting and keep sending some that way. We love seeing stuff like that. As you can see, we're having fun with it. And I don't know if you guys noticed, some of the videos are taken off on the YouTube channel. We mentioned last episode we started one. We are finally up to date with all our episodes on YouTube. We do have one video on there that, I was just playing around. And Brian actually has something that he's trying to send me that we're kind of brainstorming on what to do with it. So hopefully we can maybe do something with that. And coming up with PAX coming up, me and Tom are going to be probably hitting that pretty hard with audio and video.
Yeah, if I need to get a new charging cord for my camcorder because I lost it on a soccer field somewhere. If I can get that, maybe we'll throw a camcorder up on a tripod or something and see if we can get some games filmed or something.
I mean, I got a old school tripod, and then I'm gonna get one of those tripods they got that I think they're called Gorilla Grip or Gorilla Arm or whatever. It looks like a little spider thing that you can plop your cell phone or in there and just put it on the tabletop.
I kind of actually have something like that from one of my kids. They've got stickbot videos that they make, and that it's got. So I could see if I grab that from her.
Yeah, that's like the exact same thing. But yeah, we'll hopefully be doing a lot of stuff at PAX for that. We'll be running around. I know we're going to have open play, and we'll be running around the booth and stuff. If you guys are going to PAX, just look for some brown shirts. Not that they're dirty, but they'll have our little logo on there.
Speak for yourself.
Okay. Well, it is a long weekend, so you never know, But with that, why don't we go ahead and move into our first segment where we're just going to have a kind of an open conversation about just something in the game that we want to talk about.
All right, well, why don't we start talking about our dev workshop? So it's a little segment we're going to do. It's a development workshop where the three of us are going to discuss different aspects of the game that, may need tinkering or maybe something that we really enjoy or could use, or new ideas like new scenarios or new rules that we may want to see in the game in future updates.
What are we going to talk about in this new segment that we're trying out, Brian? Something that I think is on the top of everybody's mind lately.
Okay. Well, one of the biggest, I guess, most volatile addition to the game and is Pierce 4. That seems to have been during one of the previous updates where it triggers most special abilities for defense no longer work.
Yeah.
So,
and most units that have access to a -4 Pierce, it could be spend a fortune or spend an action point, but yeah, it's nasty.
Right. So the Pierce 4 is Pierce. Every level of Pierce adds just way more difficulty for someone to survive via a grit check. So inherent of Pierce 4 is already going to be a deadly weapon. But to then turn off all defensive abilities for that opponent that already is going to have trouble surviving a Pierce 4 grit check, it just makes Pierce 4 basically an auto wound.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, just basically the way a Pierce 4, minus 4 Pierce usually goes through just about everything. I mean, it'll go through the cover. You can't use metal on it. What else does it go through, Brian? It literally, there's not much you can do to stop it actually going through.
Metal and tough don't work.
Yep.
The front half of tough, allowing a reroll works, but then the defensive part of surviving the wound doesn't work. Yeah. So you can still use Quicken the Dead preemptively, but then you're hungry.
If they have more action points, they'll just do it again.
Right. So currently, the most deadly Pierce 4 is Slain because he's carrying 2 Pierce 4, so the rate of fire on it is more deadly. You know, because he's not just shooting you once; he's rolling twice.
Yeah.
So it's just they systematically not only made Pierce 4 is already going to be deadly, but then now that nothing else works, it makes it just so much more deadly. When I think we may want to roll back and, you know, maybe say some of the defensive things don't work, but some of them do. That way, some characters and some faces, and especially bosses, can survive it.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts?
So, yeah. I mean, so let's do this. Let's go over like a pro. So what's a pro list for a minus 4 Pierce? I mean, in previous conversation, I think you said it best, Tom. You whoop a lot of ass with a minus 4 Pierce.
You know, it's an 88 Magnum.
Yeah.
You know, it's there's no reason to have anything to it other than the minus 4. I mean, what's a pro? It kills stuff.
Yeah.
Kills stuff good.
I mean, it's
well, yeah. You're a faction that actually has access to it. You know, even if it's not your boss, there's a chance that even if you lose your boss, this one model can turn the game back towards you.
I mean,
by just walking across, blasting everything in the face.
Do you guys think the model that in any faction that would have that minus 4 is kind of like an auto include in your posse list?
If I want to play competitively in a tournament, yes.
Okay.
Because that's basically what I'm going to use to hunt down the most dangerous unit on the other side. I'm keep my boss near him if it's not my boss that has it, so that he can use his largesse to keep that guy alive.
Yeah.
I mean, it's that valuable.
Yeah, definitely is. Okay, so let's go on the other side of the coin. Cons, which more so I think our conversation today on this is leaning towards. I've felt the pain of this just this past weekend, where it's basically the guy's coming at me. He's coming at me hard with a couple units that have the minus 4 Pierce. And there wasn't really much I could do but just roll those dice and hope I had fortune to do rerolls if I didn't get the 8, 9, 10 that I needed to, you know, successfully pass a grit track. So let's go over the cons. I mean, we kind of briefly mentioned about how you can't use metal, how it goes through, you know, any kind of cover you would have. I mean, is one of the cons like that it's like overpowered, basically? I mean, that's what I'm feeling.
I mean, I don't think that's just one of the cons. That is the con.
That is the con.
It's too much. It really is just too much. Like I said, if I had that, I'm doing everything to protect that piece. That is probably the most valuable piece you have as far as a pure damage standpoint. Take out anything on the board type of a piece. And you're going to move with that, you're going to build around that, and you're going to protect that. And you're just going to pick off the most powerful units on the other guy's side for as long as you can before your minus 4 dies.
Yeah. And you said, Brian, that you wanted to look at what we could to, so our next little kind of thing in this talk is what we think needs tweaking. So what do you guys think that you could do to kind of roll it back, like you said, to maybe simmer it down a little bit?
Well, you know, inherent of the weapon just being a Pierce 4, I would limit the effects that have on all special abilities. Like right now, there is so numerous number of special abilities that are ignored if the weapon was Pierce 4.
Okay.
So I mean, the best thing to do is maybe have like maybe one level, like, there's certain levels of defense, like just a regular grit check, right? So obviously it's not gonna ignore a grit check. Everyone still gets their grit check. So then the next level of defense is a fortune reroll, right? So it doesn't ignore that. It's not like saying, oh, you can't do a fortune reroll.
Mm-hmm.
But then it gets to, okay, you fail your roll, and then there's some defensive abilities that could go into effect. Metal and then tough. Having them ignore both is just extremely brutal.
Yeah.
Not to confuse that special ability, but
I'm never living that down.
But so I think there's a way of making it affect some things, but just not eliminate them completely. And that's the risk.
I'd totally be partial to let characters still use metal. There's only so few models in the game, the boss's faces, and actually not all faces have metal. To be able to have that to soak up, damage from a weapon that powerful would help.
Well, it's hard enough already.
Yeah.
It's like, why is Pierce 4 that huge of a leap? Because Pierce 3 are great weapons.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And they're great weapons because it's that hard to grit save against them.
Yeah. Just
on a regular roll. So Pierce 4 is, a fourth better, right?
Yeah. It's almost like an auto kill. Many times I've seen it, it's just like, okay, he's dead.
Well, it's very difficult. You have to really roll well. And then, just then making it even more so by, ignoring every other defensive ability. I think that just goes a little too far. I would like to see some of that rolled back to where only a few things are affected by Pierce 4. Like maybe, like Kokororli, they have some of the defensive abilities, they ignore all effects from, weapons or whatever. And then you could say, well, unless it was a Pierce 4 weapon that put them stunned,
mm-hmm.
then they have those negative abilities,
mm-hmm.
right? Or the negative penalty.
Yeah,
that a complete death, it's like, oh, well, you normally would ignore those negative modifiers, but because it was a Pierce 4, you suffer them,
A lot with the Enlightened, a lot of them have the durable, so they're ignoring the first point of a piercing, and the piercing even goes through that. So it's like when Enlightened are facing somebody that has a -4, it's just like, well, I just pull them off the board now. Like we were saying, how it's just it goes through so much, it makes it difficult.
You feel like you're in a position where you're just looking for 10s at that point.
Yeah,
and that's a tough position to be in.
Yeah, and there's many times that my dice aren't like that. They're not like Brian's dice that have the 2 10s on them.
Yeah, we all need some of those.
But it is difficult to, when you're facing a -4 guy shooting at you, and your guy's already, average grit is 6, I would say, and if you're subtracting 4 from that, it makes it really, really hard to stay alive as it is. So,
well, there's a reason there's no Pierce 5s.
Yeah.
Yet.
Yet.
Except for the tuned, I guess.
Don't give them any ideas. Well, I think we pretty much...
Do we have any other rule things that we want to delve into?
I think we briefly talked about weapon quality reference cards, Brian. Did you want to kind of talk about that?
Oh, yeah. Okay, so one of the coolest things that they did is when we were talking about, having to print out all these things for references, right? You don't want to always have to open up a book. Well, so what War Cradle did was they were like, oh, okay, well, just like the posse cards, we're going to throw the common rules on these reference cards. And then they added them to the posse boxes. So you get, the refreshed common, abilities all on these little reference cards. So like Quicken the Dead, and Trailblazer and those type of common abilities that are on the back of the player card, it's great. It's a small, it doesn't take up much space on the table. It doesn't need a whole lot of searching for that page in the book. You just, hey, these are the common rules. Let's refresh our memory on, what Shrouded does, or, Prodigious. So
Tom's just shaking his head.
we have to chuckle every time we say that word. But I think it's
Eric,
right.
Eric, can you say that for us?
Prodigious. How's that? I'm getting better.
Good.
I've been practicing.
He's like, I know Brian's going to do it to me.
So, for that reason, I also think one of the most referenced things that people have to look up in the middle of the game is, what does this weapon quality do? So I think that's the next step for War Cradle, is to put those on a reference cards, just like the common rules, because the weapon qualities are right now the biggest thing that people are grabbing the book to reference.
Yeah, and there's so many of them too. It'd be nice to have them at easy access.
Now the nice thing is early on when we first saw those common cards, I asked Stuart if he could make that a PDF, and he did. So we can print them and cut them. So I print them, but it would be nice to have them in the
box
card.
sets.
Oh yeah, that'd be great. That way, it's easy reference, it's easy to grab, and they're so much nicer than the ones we can print on our own.
Yeah, I've printed mine out, and it was a while ago, and I ended up putting them in like some hard top loader card sleeves that I can just put with the other cards on the table. Like you said, the unit, common rules, the conditions, because you get the little condition card and the weapon upgrade card, and I just keep it with all those. But like you said, they would be nice to just automatically have. There's a lot of newer players that may be getting these box sets, and they get all the other cards, and then they have to, like you said, flip through the book to look up those weapons. What do they mean? Oh, what's this one mean? And so
yeah, it also help with those older players who don't update their rule books very often. Not that we know anyone like that.
No.
Yeah, so I know Eric and I have been there where we're at a game and we're like, oh yeah, this is what the rule means, and someone else on the other side of the table will go, no, this is what it says, and then we're like, oh wait, no, that's a previous version. And he goes, no, yours is the previous version, and we all look and we're like, dope.
And I'm sitting there. Meanwhile, I'm still looking at my Dark Council version of the rule book.
Well, at least you didn't say the first edition, Tom.
Yep.
So you've made progress.
All right.
Well, it is kind of neat. Someone on Facebook today was, I've got stuff from first edition, but I'm finally getting, dusting off my models and checking out the new rules. So I have a question. That's awesome when that happens.
Yeah.
Yay, another.
Well, see, that's kind of another reason why it'd be nice to see these cards. Just to make it easy for old and new, like I said, to either jump into it or back into it. But I think we've kind of blabbered enough about our newer segment. If you guys want to drop us a line of ideas of maybe something you want us to discuss that's kind of a little more tuned into a particular item in the game for the little workshop thing, we'll be happy to ramble on about it. And this is just three guys that we're just kind of saying stuff. We don't know exactly what works, what doesn't work.
We are not on the inside of the War Cradle.
We're not representatives. We're not affiliated with or anything like that.
It's more or less just our opinion on them, and it could be good opinion, it could be horrible opinion, but it's just our 2 cents.
The goal is to get everyone talking. So
Yeah.
comment what you think about the Dev Corner. Do you like the segment? Is it a good discussion to discuss?
Yeah, give us some ideas too. We'll talk about anything.
Heck yeah. And if someone really wants to intro their idea by joining the chat, we're open to that as well. But, definitely use it as an impetus for discussions in your own metas and on Facebook or any of the other platforms you want to, jump into discussion so we can just talk about it, Who knows? We may come up with something cool, new rules or new ways of playing or new scenarios, or those type of things. So that's what we hope to gain with this new segment. So carry on.
All right, let's move on to the next segment. Hey, Tom, Brian, guess what time it is? Brian's looking at his watch.
11:32?
No, it's time to do another top 3 models in the world of Wild West Exodus. So, a couple episodes ago, the 3 of us put some lists together of top 3 models in the game, and we're going to do it again. This time, we're going to do favorite vehicles / mounted models, and we're going to kind of stick to the same rules we did last time. So we had the rule of the 3 of us could not pick unreleased models, Brian. And I know you're looking at a certain individual that's mounted on a mechanical horse.
Yeah, but we're not picking named mounted either.
That's right. That's one of our other rules. No named guys.
We're not picking guys without the quick and the dead either.
Ooh. Brian's gonna need some ice now.
Okay, for that.
No, we're gonna kind of stick to generic picks here. Picks models that would be maybe your support, or like I said, it's gonna be your vehicles, which are usually heavy vehicles, and we kind of found that may limit us a little bit. So we threw in mounted also, just because there's a lot of cool choices for the mounted units. And why don't we go ahead and we can start with the top 3. So who wants to start with their number 3 pick? We'll count down 3, 2, 1 like we did last time. Who's antsy to talk about their number 3?
Well, I'll go ahead and start.
Okay.
Here's number 3.
My number 3 is the Tumbler cohort from the Order. This model is the Uniwheel. I mean, one, it's just a very cool model. It just has all kinds of neat things to it. I love the glow effects that I painted on mine. It just really kind of stands out on the board. Then, of course, quickness of 8. Grid of 6. It's got agile. It's one of the few vehicles that have quick in the dead. It also picks up moving target. The Hyper V rifles that it sports with shred, crits on lethal, 18 inches, Pierce 3, 2 rate of fire. It's a really good, mobile option for the Order.
I don't think I've seen that out on the table yet, Brian. Is that under the support section for the Order?
Yeah, it's a support model.
Okay.
It carries Spica, so you can bring it into one of the posses as either a support model. And when we start seeing bring Spica, it'll probably be able to just bring along based on having that trait. But one of the interesting things, it's considered masked. It's got special rule mask, but the model does not have a mask, so it's interesting. Yeah.
That is interesting. I got a question for you. I got a question for you, Brian. Why did you pick this specific one? Did I miss why you picked this one?
Oh, because it's cool.
It's cool. That's why I figured it. I figured you'd say it was
it
because
looks
it's cool.
Amazing on the table. You haven't seen it on the table, so you just don't know. Man.
No, I just don't know. Well, that's the Order for you. I just don't know.
A few weeks ago, I posted pictures of my order. You can go scroll back in Facebook and see a close up of it if you want.
Yeah, I kind of remember when you were finishing painting it up a while back ago, and it did turn out pretty good, like you said, with the glow effects and stuff like that. That's one of the neat things about a lot of the vehicles, and I think that's kind of one of our deciding things for picking vehicles to do as a top 3 is just there's some really neat modeling aspects to them. And actually, for the most part, I don't see a whole lot of the vehicles in posses. Just a lot of times people like using the faces, or, you know, some of the vehicles, like when you get into the heavies, are kind of expensive. So it's a nice change of pace, I guess I'd say.
I think now that the games are going to 1,500, you'll start seeing them here and there.
Yeah, that's true.
Especially once they start getting re-released. There's a lot of the vehicles that aren't really in the store. So some of the local places can't get them right now.
Yeah.
So I think maybe sometime in the next year when they start pushing out the Iron Horses again, and maybe some new neat options on vehicles, we'll start seeing them more and more.
All right, Tom, what do you got for your number 3? Tom, you're on mute.
Well,
what do you got for your number 3, Tom?
We just missed the most insightful, poignant comment from Tom. From the look of the video,
yeah, it was it was very thoughtful, provoking. So for me, it's the Lawman's Judgment. It's a support vehicle. There's a lot of cool things about this. First of all, just the looks of it. It's a locomotive. I mean, it's a big armored locomotive that runs not on a track. So right off the bat, it's big, it's scary, which is, you know, visually, it just projects some power.
A gallows on the back.
Exactly. I mean, it's an intimidating looking little guy there. So there's a lot of cool things about the Judgment. One, it's a transport. You can move units on it, so you can get the units across the field a little faster if you need to. It's also a firing platform, so those guys that are being transported can shoot out of it. They take a small penalty to do it, but it's pretty cool that they can do it. They don't just disappear. It's got inspirational, so units within 6 inches can re-roll a single dice roll inside of their activation. Then it's got the vehicle trait, so it can fire everything, you know, whenever it wants. So that's obviously one of the big benefits of having a vehicle. And the coolest thing that does is incarceration. At the end of this unit's activation, D5+1 stunned or disordered small-based enemy models within 8 inches are immediately removed from play. I mean, that's just really, really nasty to be able to just say, all you're just gone. There's nothing you can do about it.
Especially in concert with some of the lawman abilities that put stun, such as the Aspeton, Jedrick Powell and his Aspeton, Elena Miller's blasters. You know, there's so many carryovers that do that.
Even right on the Judgment itself, it's got the Electro Net Launcher, which has Drag, Tangle, and Torrent with Disrupt on a crit. But I mean, when you think about the power of that, you've got a Teardrop template, which is going to cover a bunch of guys. When you hit guys, you can drag them in because you want them to be within 8 inches so that you can actually do that. So if you drag them, you pull them in towards you. If you tangle them, you stun them. And boom, there you go. There's your combination right there to basically just eliminate whatever. It's a pretty nasty combination there, just using that net launcher. You know, and then of course it's got the chase cannon, which is, you know, just a 15-inch -3 cannon, kind of a pretty standard thing there. But it's really, I think, the Electronet launcher combined with incarceration is what's really, really scary about this vehicle. That's all I got.
That's all you got. That's a heavy too, right, Tom?
Yeah, that's a heavy.
Okay, so that's the big old boat block.
Yeah, it's expensive. It's 220 points, so you know you're only going to use this during bigger games. But it's an extra large.
Okay.
Yeah, it weighs a couple of pounds.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's just a big old chunk of resin.
For now, because they have been talking about coming up with ways to redo those bigger heavies. I know they were talking about figuring out a way to make it like a plastic kit to cut the cost to the player that wants to get it, and just make it more economical, for overall. All right. Well,
Yeah. All right. Eric, what about you?
My number 3 is, I feel kind of weird picking this as, a number 3 for me, or just a pick in general. I picked Sky Stallions, and I'll admit up front, a lot of it is because it's kind of your classic looking Wild West model. It's a an Indian brave on a horse, a big horse. But
they're right sexy beasts.
They are. I mean, that's just, when you think of the Wild West, you think of a guy riding a horse. So, but one of the things I think is also neat about the Sky Stallions. So this is a support unit that's in the Warrior Nation. It's mounted. They're fairly cheap. I mean, they're only 80 points to, take one model. You can take 1 to 3. But one of the neat abilities that I think that they have on the Sky Stallions is the Sky Leap. I think that's a really neat ability that they have. They're already a fairly mobile unit with a quick of 8, but being able to do a special move action that they can be placed up to 9 inches away from where they initially started that leap. So they could basically jump up on buildings. They can get over any kind of terrain. There's not really much that'll slow them down. They also have the Spirit Aim, which is kind of neat. You can swap out your Mind attribute in place of their Aim attribute for your aim checks. And then they don't suffer obscured penalties that you normally would get when you're taking a shoot action. They also are elusive, so they don't suffer the -4 penalty against backstab reactions. They're skirmishers, so you can spread them out a little bit. They have metal, moving target. And they're weapons. So, granted, they're only a rate of fire 1, but like the Spirit Bow is attuned and it has decapitate on crits, and you can do it like 15 inches away. So it's a decent shooting weapon. And then if you get them close enough, which you're going to be able to do easily with their, the Sky Leap, and with their quick of 8, you can tear into, some units with their Tommy Hawks. So, but like I said, a big part of the pick was just the aesthetic. It's kind of a neat model. I have a couple of them that they look like they'd be a fun model to paint. With the different coats of horses, you could do Palominos, or you can make them black stallions, whites. It's just, there's a lot of variety to painting a model like this.
Well, I really like that synergy between the Sky Leap and the Spirit Aim, because you can kind of drop him into spots where he's getting a lot of cover while ignoring it shooting out.
Yeah.
So that's a really powerful thing there. Even though you're only getting a rate of fire 1, it's a pretty powerful one that you can put together there.
Yeah. Yeah. It's almost a guarantee that he can get anywhere he wants to get and, attack something. So.
Yep.
All right. Brian, you're up next with the number 2.
Here's number 2.
Number 2. All right. So I'm going to switch things up again and jumping into my favorite faction. And I'm going with the Ranger Interceptor. The support, light vehicle, mounted lawman, picks up the traits machines, human, ranger, and interceptor. It's gained the tag Ranger, which it's great because it can go into the Ranger Showboat posse, and it for 85 points a model, it brings quickness 5, grit of 5, aim of 5. What one of the coolest things is these guys didn't forget to bring their asp. So as they ride by, they do have the ability to use a melee weapon. Those weapons pick up parry and stun. And of course, it has the Eagle hypervelocity guns, which carry shred and linked. So you're ignoring the first level of any obstructions, and you're re-rolling them misses. On a crit, it gains lethal, 20-inch range with 9 quickness, 20-inch range. One of the special rules they get also is rapid, which is free focus moves. This 20 inches is gonna, with the 20-inch range, you're gonna hit something. You're not gonna be waiting to get in position. So jumping out with a quick 9 with an extra 2, that's 11 inches in. That 20 inches is gonna hit the other side of the board already. So
yeah, it's hard to hide. It's hard to hide from a 20-inch range.
Right.
Yep.
Pierce 3, rate of attack 2. These cannons are so brutal, but not brutal.
I think he's taking a jab at you, Tom.
You can bring 3 in a unit. They have skirmishers, so you don't have to keep them real close. They also have trail finders, so you can jump them out ahead at the beginning of the game. They also have moving targets, so they're harder to hit. Now, the one thing they pick up, which is unique to it being a lawman vehicle, is they do have Tin Man, which means base to base, they pick up a +1 grit, and they may ignore penalties of uneven ground and may re-roll failed yellow checks. Well, this is huge. They have skirmishers, so they can spread out, but they gain something if they kind of link up and touch bases. So overall, it's a really good option for fast-moving targets. They can get out to objectives and stuff, so it's just a great option for a vehicle. Number two.
All right, so my number 2 is in the Union faction, and it is their big heavy one. It's the Rolling Thunder. The Rolling Thunder is just a big old nasty tank.
I was going to say nasty. That's nasty.
Yeah. To me, what's really scary about them is the Gatling fusillades. They're linked, they're heavy, they're brutal, they're lethal on a crit. -2 piercing, but a rate of attack of 6. I mean, that's just it's just nasty. Just tears right through things.
And they can shoot all your weapons at.
They can shoot all their weapons at once. It's and oh, by the way, they have a gunnery of 8. so it's just gunnery. God, I'm losing my mind. Marksmanship. Well, marksmanship of 4. I'm losing my mind here. I was like an 8. I'm looking at the wrong thing here.
You mean aim?
Oh God. Ignore me. My brain's fried. They've also got the chase cannon, which is the same thing that's on the Judgment. It's a -3. It's just a big gun. It's fine. But it's the Gatlins that are, to me, really a scary thing. It's got mass, so it ignores disordered from smoke screens. It's a vehicle, so it can fire all of its weapons. It's indomitable, so once per turn, when the unit's declared as an initial target of an attack, the unit can make a mind check, and if it's passed, it removes all negative conditions that are applied at that time. So it's just a pretty nice extra thing to have where you just no conditions, great. It's also tough and durable. There's nothing, tricky about this. This is just a big hammer.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the being able to fire all its weapons at once, that's really nasty. I mean, and with the aim as high as it is, that thing is hitting everything that it's shooting.
Yes, it is. So it's you're rolling a rate of attack of 6 is just, I don't think there's many things that have a rate of attack that high. You're just mowing through things. Yeah. And it feels good.
Unless you're getting mowed by it.
Well, mowing feels good. Mowed, not so good.
Yeah, I'm kind of looking real quick to see if there's any vehicles on my list that have a rate of attack like that. There's not many. I mean, the Trailblazers do. But like even just with the other heavies, I am not seeing a rate of attack like that. So it's hard to compete against that.
Yep. So I have a question for you guys though. That for the Rolling Thunder, as you guys know, the model itself has Gatling guns facing in each direction. There's 4 Gatling guns mounted on this. Is that rate of attack baked into the fact that there's 4, or do each one of those 4 get a rate of attack of 6?
It's all at once, isn't it, Brian? It's just the rate of attack is the rate of attack.
So the way multiple weapons work is the reason it's a rate of attack of 6 is the fact that it has all 4 of them.
Yep, that's what I was asking.
Okay.
Yep.
Right.
Okay.
That's why it's rate of attack 6. Because it's assuming only 2 of them are shooting in one direction.
Sure, but you can technically shoot in every direction at once.
Right, but that's why it's only 6, because the Gatlins are typically 3. So you're basically, because of the way you have to pick one target.
Yeah.
And there's only going to be able to have 2 bring those 2 to bear. So without getting into facings and stuff like that, they made an easy way. Is like, well, there's no way you're going to get 3 all trained on the same target. So they just put two Gatlins together and said, okay, well, whenever they pick a target, that's getting hit.
That's getting hit. That right there, that's getting hit.
So, I mean, that's probably how they decided that, is because, especially now that they're working on the ship combat, obviously.
Yeah. No, and I agree. I agree with you. I agree with you on that. I just wanted to clarify it and make sure everyone knew that you weren't getting 24 shots.
Yeah, that would be really bad.
Oh my God. All right, well, I'll go on to my number 2. Mine is very similar to what Tom just picked. So mine is also a big, heavy vehicle. It's the Doomsday, which has a lot of similar traits that Tom's had. It also has tough and durable, and it has the ability to get rid of conditions. It is also a vehicle that can shoot all its weapons, even though it has just the Reaper cannons on this that are heavy, brutal, lethal with a crit. I am only throwing 5 dice, though, with the Doomsday, Tom. It also has, one of the things I like about the Doomsday is the capacity with it. So the Doomsday can take up to 6 models inside it, up to 6 small-based models, and the units transported in this manner gain the hunkered condition while they're inside it. And also, friendly units can be deployed already mounted in the unit. Both units are deployed to the battlefield as a single deployment, and the transported unit are considered to be mounted. You cannot put, of course, another unit that has capacity inside this. And it also has a firing platform, so guys that are riding around in it can make shoot actions. Unfortunately, they do suffer a -2 to their penalty to their aim, but still it's an option. Aesthetically, I like this model because it kind of reminds me of, like from the old Westerns, your iron war wagons. It just doesn't have horses on it, unless you want to model some iron horses or some black hoofs or something. It's a neat looking model. Very similar to the other heavies. It's just a big chunk of resin.
Yeah. Well, it looks kind of like a stagecoach, right?
Yeah, it's like the armored stagecoach. So, it does have the big cow catcher on the front, which is kind of cool. And yeah, I mean, it's a fun big vehicle. It is expensive like the other big heavies at $215. What I usually take this with the Enlightened every once in a while when I get kind of tired of my slow guys that move 4, 5. I could put a bunch of the guys in there, and it helps them get across the field a little more safely, so they're not just getting pinged off while they're slowly lumbering across the field. But I mean, the Doomsday, you can use it in a couple of the other different factions. Like I know I've used it with the Outlaws, and it's kind of one of those cross-faction vehicles. Like, some of them are, some of them aren't. Like I know the is it the old fire truck? I know can go in a couple of the other factions. But yeah, that's my number 2, the Doomsday. Okay, just like last time, before all of us get into our number 1s, we wanted to kind of go over our honorable mentions or our runner-ups or number 4s as they are. Now, these picks that we did for these vehicles, these models, are not any particular order that they, why we picked them. They basically were just, they just missed getting on the list for one reason or another. Not that they're bad or that we don't like them over the other ones. They're runner-ups that just didn't get on the list. So, Brian, why don't you give us your number 4 runner-up honorable mention?
All right, Brian. Swinging back around to you.
All right, so my number 4 is new to the Lawman faction. Thank you, War Cradle. And it is the deputized Dust Cutter. So the Dust Cutter is a 2-man, 4-wheeled vehicle where one guy's driving and the other guy is in a turret. The model comes with 3 different options that you can, choose from. I, of course, threw magnets on mine, so yay, go me. The base model is 120, bring into a posse. You cannot team him up with others. Common rules are metal and surefoot, quickness of 7, grit of 6, aim of 4. This thing has base is a Gatling gun, which brings heavy, brutal, and linked, 15-inch range, pierce to 2, rate of fire 3, carries a capacity of 2, so you can also drag around a couple extra units. I do not know where you're carrying them because it does not appear to have a thing. I guess they just cling on to the side. It has a firing platform, so those transport units can shoot out, just like we just discussed for the Doomsday. It also can replace that Gatling with anything else that you want to spend more points on from the faction armory. And like I said, it comes with 3 different options, actually, with the model. So it comes with a Gatling, comes with a flamethrower, and comes with I wanted to say it's just an auto cannon, which I don't know if there's even an option of that in the faction armory, but you get it. It also is a vehicle, so it can fire all the weapons it's equipped with at the same shoot action. So basically, if you are carrying a couple other guys, their weapons can shoot at the same time as your Gatling. So, bring someone with a Gatling, and then you're shooting more than one Gatling. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. This model also has rapid, so that quick of 7 gets an upcharge for free. So it's running 9. So good model, looks cool. I have not painted mine yet. Of course, that was because it was an outlaw, but now I can use it as a deputy.
Come on.
So
Outlaws need love too.
Shiny deputized lawman paint job.
So that's
all right. That's number 4.
That's your runner-up number 4.
So that they put it on an extra large base.
Go ahead and do your runner-up, Tom.
All right. Well, my runner-up is the Union Iron Horse Cavalry. I like the Iron Horses. I plan on making a giant Iron Horse-based posse using Custer. The thing I really like about the Iron Horses is their flexibility. You can put different weapon loadouts on them. There are additional costs for some of the other weapons, the flamethrowers, the grenade launchers. But if you mix a whole bunch of these different weapon types together, you can really cover anything that comes up on the board. You can get indirect fire, you can get blasts down, you can clear out buildings with flamethrowers. You can just use the Gatling guns to tear things apart. So really, more than anything, I don't even love the way they look. I think they're kind of silly looking, but I really like how effective they are. So I think that makes them my runner-up.
Silly looking. They kind of look like speeder bikes.
No,
you gotta like that.
No.
No?
No,
Which
they
one?
look like speeder bikes. They look kind of dopey. I don't know.
Is that why that's why you're runner up?
If they were prettier, they'd be further up the list.
Well, all right, I'll go ahead and move to my bridesmaid. My runner up for this list is the Interceptors, particularly the Bandit Interceptors, because I do play Outlaws occasionally, and I do paint them, Brian. So yeah, the Bandit Interceptors. So it's a support model that can go either in the Outlaws or the Hex. It's a mounted mercenary unit, so it kind of floats around. It's a cheap unit, so it's only 80 points to put in your posse.
Stolen.
Yeah, I was stolen. Well, this one was pretty, so maybe that's why they stole it. It has a quickness of 9, and then combine that with the fact that they have a special rule, Rapid, that they can focus their move actions at no additional cost. So just doing a focus move for free, you can get that sucker cranked up to 11 inches. And then, say you do a dash with it, you could really move this sucker up the field. So it's a fast, mobile unit. It has common rules like skirmishers and moving target, so you can spread them out, make it hard to hit. And they have a juiced hyper volley gun, which has a range of 20 inches. It's a rate of fire only 2, but with a piercing -3, if you hit, it's going to hurt. And it has shred and linked, so it'll go through stuff and you can re-roll. And then with the overcharged on crits, it really helps tie some stuff down. This is one of those units that I've used a couple times, but when I've used it, it's worked pretty effectively. I don't use it a lot because I don't really, like I said, I don't take a lot of vehicles in my posses. I'm one of those few that just like to face guys, and I'm forcing myself to take more hands. But it's a pretty sexy model out on the board. But that's my runner up to the list is the Bandit Interceptors. And what's kind of neat, I didn't mention, is that the Interceptors is one of those, you'll find them in some of the other factions, like the Lawmen will have them. I believe the Union have them. And I think that's it. But that's my runner up. So why don't we go ahead and go to our top of the list. So our number ones. Tom, you start us off with your number one.
Wow.
Tom,
Awesome.
you're on mute.
Damn it.
I might have to leave that in.
I thought Brian was our number one.
You switched the order.
You can't switch the order. That's not how that works. That's not how any of this works.
I'm keeping you on your toes.
On your face, you were like, blah, blah, blah. You had no idea what you were talking about.
Oh, my
You
God.
wonder why I run without a camera.
What?
Look into my eye.
You're supposed to pull it down. Look into
Look
my
into
eye.
my eye. So am I doing my number one or is Brian?
Brian, go for it.
He's number one in our hearts.
Number one in our hearts.
And the best of them all, number one.
All right. So my number one vehicle choice is, no shock here, a lawman vehicle. It is the Ranger Gyrocopter. So this support model obviously is a machine. It's a Ranger. It picks up the trait Flight, which allows a special move, 18 inches brutal, and it's considered another model. For 85 points per model, you can bring up to 3 in a unit. Common rules are skirmishers, so they can spread out if you like. They also pick up agile and moving target. So special rules is dispersed deployment. This unit cannot be placed into reserve after standard deployment, but before any trailblazers have deployed. Starting with player B, each player must take it in turns to place a unit with the dispersed deployment rule into the play area. Units must be placed at least 6 inches apart from other units and 6 inches away from the edge of the play area, and must be placed outside of the deployment zones. That basically means you can't deploy these guys inside your deployment zone, so they get a little advantage to move up the board. They also have elusive, so backstab suffer a -4 penalty. All right, so with quick stabbing, it's moving pretty good on a normal move. So if you do your flight move, which you can only do once per turn, you can take another move with the quick 7. So they're pretty agile across the board. You can use his pistols with a 10-inch range. They can throw some smoke grenades at 8 inches. But the big gun is the Liberty Gatling gun, linked, brutal, and refined. So refined allows you to crit on a 9 and 10, and the crit gives you shred.
Did you say that thing was heavy? It's a heavy weapon?
No, the Liberty Gatling gun is not heavy.
It is not heavy.
Right. But machines ignore the
true
move and shoot part of heavy, so it really wouldn't matter. The Gatling gun has 15-inch range, pierce 2, rate of attack at 3, so just a great model. I've always loved the design. The only downside of it is I only bought 1, and now you can bring 3 in a unit. So I pick up a couple more. Or if someone wants just to send me some,
Oh, geez. Here we go again.
God, we're like the poor beggars.
Hey, you're the one who started it.
Oh, no, I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying we're poor beggars. Send us stuff.
Right.
Tom, what do you got for your top pick?
All right. So my number 1 is one that's been covered twice now already. It's the Interceptor. It's the Ranger Interceptor. So instead of going over that again, I'll go into the anecdotal library on why I love this so much. When the Lawmen were originally released, there wasn't much available for them. One of the first things that was released for them after the initial Kickstarter was the Interceptor. So I picked them up and used them, and they looked very much like they were going to be an anti-infantry platform. They basically had guns that put out a rate of fire of 4 of a 2-inch blast template. So combined with their number of actions and everything, they put out 8 shots of 2-inch blast templates. It looked like it was just going to be this great anti-infantry thing. So I brought them to a tournament and came up against someone who ran an Enlightened Horde, and I put them against his, 20 or 30 constructs or whatever the heck he had, and I was killing like 2 guys a turn, and it was awful. And turns out they are not good anti-infantry platforms, and I got my butt kicked. So I was a little steaming about them. I was like, oh, these things are garbage. Why did I get them? They're horrible. I came up against a Warrior Nation opponent the next game. He had one of those Fire Eagles, and he flew it across the board and dropped it and basically blew some fire down a line of my guys, which was pretty devastating early in the game. And the only thing I had available to fight it with was these Interceptors, which I'm like, oh, they're power 8. They're garbage. They're not going to do anything. But they're all I have. I turned them on this Fire Eagle and just absolutely blew it off the board, devastated it. One turn, it was gone. Turned out that Interceptors are probably the best anti-armor bikes in the game in first edition. And I found that out very accidentally. But basically because of how those rules worked, even when you missed, you hit, because you scattered those blast templates, and they didn't go very far when you scattered them. So, you're hitting these big armored targets. Even when they scattered, you were still nipping them. That POW 8 was not great, but it had armor piercing. So you'd always do 1 or 2 damage, which isn't great until you multiply it out by the fact that you have 8 shots per, and you had 3 bikes. So you got 24 shots on something, doing 1 or 2 damage every time. Basically, you just annihilated things. And because of that, they kind of gained a special place in my heart, and it still remained that way. They're used much differently now in second edition, but they're still really, really good. in second edition, just for different reasons that we've already covered. And on top of that, they look really cool. You know, you've got a Ranger on a crotch rocket basically, and
Yeah.
with big guns sticking out the front. What's not to like about that?
Technically, you have a deputy on it, but it's a Ranger.
These are Ranger interceptors. Come on, these are not deputy interceptors. God, get with the program, Brian.
I'm not even going to get into the fact that the Outlaws just stole them from both you guys. So
shut up. Goddamn dirty screws.
They stole their outfits too. Those bastards stole their outfits too,
Great.
man.
So now we got a bunch of naked Rangers laying out in the desert. Great. But yeah, so that's why they come in at my number one. They were really great in first edition. They're really great in second edition, and they're really cool looking. You can do a lot of different things with modeling them and everything. I've got one popping a wheelie, and you can kind of have them skidding out and stuff. So they're really kind of neat. So that makes them my number one.
yeah, these are the models that I think you brought it up episodes ago, Tom, about just doing some donuts with them to get the moving target, and then just throwing that volley of their rate of attack at something that's just right in front of them.
Yeah. I mean, you just there's so much to like about them. I think it's the one common thing that we had between all of our lists, and I just think it's a fun, really effective vehicle.
Yeah. So I'm gonna move to my number one. My number one is also it's kind of another aesthetic pick. I have yet to use this model, so I can't say how great or fantastic it is, but with us on the show of the Blackhoof Saloon, I'm kind of partial to this model a little bit, seeing as this is kind of where the name came from. But I'm going to pick the Blackhoof Scouts. Now, we could name any of the Black Hoofs. There aren't that many out yet, but we're starting to see some more come into the game. But this was a model that when I was first getting into the game, I got introduced, was the second Kickstarter. And this was a big part of that second Kickstarter with the Confederates coming out. And I just thought, oh, wow, that is so neat to see these mounted units on a mechanical horse. I just thought it was really neat to see this mechanical horse. Basically, it's a support with the Confederates that has a quickness of 7. They're fairly cheap units, 70 points per unit or per model. They have, a variety of weapons like the juiced rifle, that's 18-inch range with overcharge on the crit. They have juiced pistols with revolver fan and close worked. And then they also have another juiced weapon, the saber, that has parry and also overcharged again. They don't have any special rules, but what they do have is skirmishers, surefoot, and moving target. And one of the other things that going along with the Confederates, what I like is they have the Confederate keyword that, they only have a limit of 2. So if you can kind of keep these guys within range of your boss that will have like Rebel Yell, most of the bosses in the Confederate have Rebel Yell, you can bump that limit up to 3. So then they may become a little more effective for their unit.
May?
You can take...
It's not a may. They will.
They will? True. They will.
They can become more effective.
You can take up to 3 models in a unit. So, you can... my thought always with the Confederates was, maybe take 2 units of these guys, and keep them close to one of the bosses for the Confederates. But like I said, a big deciding factor for me with these models is just the coolness factor of the mechanical horse. And that's my number one.
I agree. I actually think they're one of the cooler looking units in the game. They are really, for where the story is, they are very westerny.
Yeah.
And I think that's what really is great about them.
And like I said, I'm partial because of, name of our show. I can't help it.
Right.
Well, that is our top 3 vehicles in Wild West Exodus. I hope you guys enjoyed that. We kind of wanted to do a little bit of a follow-up from our last time we did a top 3, which is the models. This time we wanted to do something different. We wanted to be a little more selective, and we decided to pick vehicles or mounted models in the game. I think the big winner, though, today is the Interceptors. Like you said, Tom, all 3 of us picked the Interceptor in one form of a faction in all our list. That definitely is a fun model to try out. So if anybody out there hasn't looked into that, to putting that into your posses, check it out. So that about wraps up our top 3, and we'll go ahead and get out of this segment and move on to something else.
Get on out there, little doggy.
All right. Well, guys, thanks for listening to another episode of Blackhoof Saloon. We tried to keep it a little bit shorter this episode. The last couple episodes, we were getting talky talk, and we lost the button to put on Brian to woe him. But he just gives me a look.
That look. It's like, what are you talking about?
But we were kind of...
Oh, me? Do I look like a horse?
Whoa there, Brian.
Whoa!
Do I amuse you?
Hey, maybe that's another outfit. We'll just get you a saddle.
Am I sitting in a circle with a saddle on my back?
Hey, enough with that.
I don't know if I want to even go there with that one.
Wow.
But
so you're into pony play, is that what I'm hearing?
Brony. But no, listen, guys, we wanted to keep this one a little bit shorter and get it out before everybody starts driving or flying or making their way to PAX. Give them something to listen to, and before the holidays. We're actually recording this just before Thanksgiving here in America. And, we thought it'd be something for people to listen to, before PAX, which is November 30th to December 2nd. And actually, if you guys are heading to that, just a little bit of reminder, me and Tom are going to be trying to run an open play. So if you guys are looking to get in some games, I know there's a lot of local guys that are going to be getting together, and me and Tom will be there. I'm going to be bringing a bunch of terrain across the country.
Yeah, I'll be bringing some terrain down to, we don't know where we're going to be. We are going to be somewhere in the open play area and just trying to stake a claim to a couple of tables somewhere. So try to hunt us down. We'll
probably post something on the Dark Council so you guys know like when we're set up and maybe exactly where we are. So keep an eye open on that.
I envision
yes.
Far and Away, with Tom Cruise on a horse, and he's got his little flag, and he has to ride out in front of everyone and, out on the plains of Oklahoma to stake a claim. So is it going to be like a rush through the gates to try to get to an open table? So who's going to be Nicole Kidman?
Mary.
Well,
she's
I am
got
the
red
pretty
hair.
One, so.
Should I have gotten one of those, Brian? A big ass flag with our logo on it, and we just have Tom just sitting there waving it back and forth.
It'll be like something at Les Mis. Like, hey! Wow. God, I thought we were men. We're talking about Far and Away and Les Mis. God.
Hey, Far and Away was it's like a Western, Oklahoma.
Give me a beer.
God. You need something to put some hair back on my chest.
Yeah. Yeah. Shake that off.
What is Les Mis? I don't think I've ever seen that.
I've just heard of it. I don't know what it is.
You guys can also keep in mind you can always send questions or comments. We're starting to get a little bit of comments. We read in the intro. Some of our listeners have submitted some stuff. You can find us on Facebook at Blackhoof WWX Podcast, or you could email us at blackhoofsaloon@gmail.com. I think we're getting a little bit slap happy, so maybe we should get out of here. So listen, guys, while you're kind of watching out and diving for cover against the nastiness that is the -4 weapon that's just barreling down on you, keep in mind to always ride with the sun at your back and roll those crits. This is Eric saying I will talk to you later. Take it easy.
Bye, guys.
And this is Brian saying to ensure that Slane's not the one shooting those -4s at you, make sure you always have an extra large whiskey for him so he's just a little off of the aim.
We hope to see y'all guys at PAX. Later.
Bye.
Thanks for stopping by the Blackhoof Saloon, y'all. We hope you enjoyed your visit. Feel free to get a hold of us with comments or questions via the interweb and shoot us a telegraph at blackhoofsaloon@gmail.com or find us on the Facebook at Blackhoof WWX Podcast. Music provided for use by Ross Bugden and can be found at one of his YouTube channels, Ross Bugden Music or Ross Bugden Composer. Until your next visit, ride with the sun at your back and always roll those crits.
That's the bad thing about those little tiny pieces like that. If you lose track of it, it's like...
Well, I must have bounced off of it.
It's from Jed twirling his batons and stuff, throwing them up in the air.
Right.
Calling in the 76 trombones.
I get that reference. Is that sad that I get that reference?
No, everyone should get that reference. Come on. One of the greatest musicals ever made. Brian, what do you use for lights? I can see the lighting your face, but it looks very dark behind you.
Oh, there are no other lights on right now.
It usually has the halo going.
All right.
Sometimes it'll have the halo behind me, but so then it's like, it'll be like this. It'll look like this.
Dentist flashbacks. Holy crap.
I'm used to painting this close to my face. So relearning to actually paint with like a foot distance from my face with this lamp in between.
Yeah.
I just haven't gotten that far yet. I haven't practiced.
Maybe I don't need a super magnified close up of my shaky ass hands.
Feel them shaking. You don't need to see them shake.
Exactly. I mean, we had one rule to discuss instead of 30 somewhat.
We could go over vehicle rules and then give our thing, but the vehicle rules or stuff, it's not going to be a long chat either.
No.
Yeah. I don't really have a vehicle or top 3 vehicles at this point because I haven't used them in 2nd edition.
Yeah.
So,
bring up vehicles you love because they look awesome, or
most of mine are going to be Interceptor 1, and then Interceptor 2, and then Interceptor 3. Because I've got one Piley. I've got...
Do you?
Yeah.
So do I.
Wow.
There's two things you can do.
Yeah.
One is you just attack it with an exact knife, and then resculpt his hardened abs, and then you paint it on the. Then you have a clean canvas.
I'm not that ambitious.
Or you paint the grumpy symbol underneath that pouch, so it's just spilling out behind it.
So you just see a little bit of the cloud coming out and a little bit of the rainy hearts.
Right.
I think. All right.
What did we do last time?
It's got to be runner up to the top 3 because your runner up to the number 1 be the number 2.
That's what I figured.
I can't remember how we did it last time.
So wouldn't that just be number 4?
Yes, it's number 4. What's your number 4? We're going 3, 2, 4, 1.